Prabhupada Priya Devi has been serving as a full-time devotee in ISKCON for 32 years. In her time, she has distributed hundreds and thousands of Srila Prabhupada's books. Spent 19 years serving in the Holy Dham. I think she stayed 10 years in Vrindavan and 9 years in Mayapur. 19 years. She is actually born and brought up in New York. I was thinking she's from Indian origin. She said, no, I'm not. She said, Prabhu, I have white parents. I said, oh. She has raised 2 Krishna conscious children, and actually her life has a major angle of raising her children in a Krishna conscious way. That was actually her reason to move to Mayapur, and that was her reason to move to Vrindavan and then to Mayapur. She is currently a Vanaprastha and serving as a zonal supervisor for the state of Texas, an educational director for Krishna House in Dallas. She is a highly accomplished scholar in our movement, having completed Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav and also Bhakti Vedanta. She wrote a thesis during Bhakti Vedanta that she is releasing as a book now. I think she will speak something about that also. Something little bit on that. She is a writer, a mentor, a mediator and teacher known all over the world for her amazing classes and seminars. And you will see that today also. Krishna will. So hand it over to you. Har Krishna Prabhupada Priya Devi.
Jai. Thank you very much, Shamananda Krishna Prabhu, for the intro, and thank all of you for being here. So I'm used to speaking a little more philosophically on Shastra, but I was requested to speak about my life. It's interesting actually because when I was taking the Bhaktivedanta course, I had one teacher, Adi Purusha Prabhu from the Ukraine, and very good teacher, good sense of humor, is very creative, like an out-of-the-box kind of devotee. And one of the homework assignments that he gave to us was to think of one episode of your life and meditate on that as if it was a chapter from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then I started reflecting on my life, thinking, which episode am I going to choose? And then I was thinking, well, any little piece of my life practically could be a chapter from the Srimad Bhagavatam, in terms of lessons learned, situations in which, that Krishna was putting me in a certain situation to direct me in a certain way. And so of course not everything in Srimad Bhagavatam is about pure devotional service in one sense, right? We have Hiranyakashipu, we have Ravana, we have Daksha, and we have all these personalities. So at different phases in my life, maybe I was more like Hiranyakashipu, in other phases I was more like Prahlad. But in any case, we can learn from both, right? We can learn what to do and what not to do from these different personalities, and we can also learn from our own experiences. So it's important to reflect on our own experiences and how those have been arranged, directly or indirectly, by Krishna to bring us to a higher state of consciousness. So I'll start from how I came to Krishna consciousness, which is a long story, but I'll try to make it briefly, otherwise it's going to take the whole hour. But as Prabhu said, I was born and raised in northern New York State, near the Adirondack mountain range, very close to the Canadian border. So it was kind of in the backwoods, as they say, in the sticks of upstate New York. And it was nice. I grew up in this village where everybody knew everyone, and very idyllic childhood, actually. Very safe and free, and playing and going here and there. Later, my parents got divorced and they went to separate ways, and I lived with my mother. We moved to another town, and it was after the divorce that I started thinking deeply. I was a 10-year-old, and I was like, what just happened? I lost half my family. I lost my sense of identity. I had to move to a different town where I didn't know anyone, where it was kind of a slightly different mood, different kind of socioeconomic bracket, and I was trying to figure out how to fit in. and I became very meditative and just observing how just everything going on around me and thinking, what is going on. So that was kind of the start of my spiritual journey right there, because I kind of lost my bearings, and I spent a lot of time praying during that time of my life. I kind of just took shelter of God. I had a strong upbringing. My mother was very active in the church. We went to a Protestant church, Methodist church, and so I was very much believing in God and understanding that God is there for me. I had already felt some reciprocation as a child, and I was like, now's the time when I really need to depend on this supreme person. And so I came to, the more I depended on him, the more I felt his presence and his shelter during that difficult period of my childhood. And so we started going to a new church, which was great. It was even better than the old church. The pastor at that church was, I still remember his name, Reverend George Gutchess, and he was fantastic. He was just really very pure, very honest, just very much a man of God, like a devotee. He was really, a devotee within the tradition of Christianity. And he would give these sermons that would make me feel like, wow, I really want to know more about God. I want to get closer to him. I want to have a connection with him. But I was struggling to find a way to do that within the tradition. So then I started looking to other, and I also had a lot of questions about God that I wasn't able to get the answers to, because the knowledge of God as a person, his personality, his form, his anything, is not accessible, through the Bible so much. I guess you could, if you were very sincere and praying a lot, you could get some internal revelations, but I wasn't getting those at this point. And so I needed something more accessible. So I started going to the bookstore. We had a mall that was about an hour drive from our house, so that was kind of like our weekend ritual, that my mother would take all of us kids to the mall, and then she'd give us 2 hours. She'd just release us and say, okay, this is the meeting point. This was before mobile phones, so she'd just say, we're meeting here, this place. Set your alarms for 2 hours from now. We're going to meet here and go. And we had some money from our allowances and whatever odd jobs we did, and we could go anywhere. And it was a huge mall. So my younger brother would go to the toy store, my older brother would go to the video arcade, and I would go to the bookstore. And I would just sit in the bookstore for 2 hours, and I'd go straight to the religion and spirituality section and just read as much as I could. And it was always the same. It was like my library there. And every weekend I would read. So in that way I was exploring. I became a spiritual seeker. And then I graduated from high school. I went to college. I went to a kind of an alternative style college in Maine, Bar Harbor, Maine. I studied human ecology. I got my degree there. And after that, in my senior year in college, I applied for a fellowship. It's called the Thomas J. Watson Fellowship, which I was to write a proposal for a project of independent study, which in other countries. And so I did that, and I won the fellowship. And so they gave me a check for $13,000 to travel around the world and do my research according to my own desire, basically. And the only thing that I was obligated to do was write a letter every 3 months to tell them how I was doing. So that was just Krishna, because I had this sense, even from a young age, that I wanted to travel, and I just needed to get out of America. I needed to experience different cultures, different ways of life, and just see what the options were. I knew that there was a lot more than just, small town America. So that was good. And it was super eye-opening. When I went to other countries and I started seeing how religion wasn't just, something that you go to church 1 hour a week and then after you live your mundane life. But religion was something that pervaded the whole culture. It was just all pervasive in the life of people. I went to some Islamic countries, and it's just very much the life, the religion is in their life. I went to Hindu countries where I saw the same thing, and I was like, wow, this is the way to live, not just this fragmented life where God is just off here in the corner somewhere, but it's like in everything that you do. So that really inspired me. And then the first time I met devotees was in Penang, Malaysia. And they didn't even have a temple there yet. They have a temple now. But at that time they just had Bhakti Vriksha meetings in people's homes. And so I hadn't met devotees in the USA before I left on this trip. And so it was interesting because when I was in college, I had a friend, and he used to go to these rainbow gatherings. And rainbow gatherings are like these kind of like hippie things. They get in the woods and they listen to music and get together and whatever, do hippie stuff. I never actually went to one, but he said this friend was telling me, "Oh, yeah, I think you'd really like the rainbow gatherings. You should go next time they have one. Try to get there." And I was like, "Okay, that sounds cool. I'll see if I can, get there one day. Put it on my bucket list." And he said, and one tip I'll give you about rainbow gatherings, if you ever go, you got to find the Hare Krishnas, because they're always there and they always have the best food. It's like all the people there, they just survive at rainbow gatherings because of the Hare Krishna food. So I remembered that one day in my life I have to eat Hare Krishna food. So I was in Malaysia and I was at this cultural festival, and I was just walking along looking, seeing the sights and things. And then I saw a big plywood sign. Oh, thank you. There was a big piece of plywood, and it was spray painted on the sign, Hare Krishna food. And I was like, wow, that is literally what I was told I should get. So I went there. And I ate the Hare Krishna food. It was just one man there, and one devotee. He was stirring up some chow mein, so I ate chow mein. And then I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to ask him questions, but he was talking to another group of people that were there, and so he didn't he was just with them, and he kind of neglected me. So I was like, oh well. Anyways, I finished eating, and I went on my way. And then I saw a stall that said spiritual books. So I went over there, because that was my thing, spiritual books. And it was the same devotee, same one who had been cooking chow mein. He was there, and he was the only one there. It was like a one-man show, this one devotee. Like Shamananda Krishna Prabhu here starting at the end. He's cooking for the devotees. He's running the temple. He's out there doing, tea and cookies at the campus. And so this was a really fired up devotee. And so I was very interested in the books. The first book that caught my eye was the Bhagavad Gita. As soon as I saw it, I just got it, and I picked it up, and I started flipping through it. And then, after couple minutes, I was like, how much is this one? And then he said, have you read any of these books before? And I said, no, this is first books by this author. And he said, well, why don't you try this one first? So he gave me a small book, Perfection of Yoga. And I looked at it, and I was like, okay, but what about this one, the Bhagavad Gita? And he said, I think you should read this one first. So then he got another one who was coming back, and he handed that to me. And then by that time I started thinking that maybe he's not going to allow me to buy the Bhagavad Gita. Maybe he's thinking I'm unqualified and I just need to read the small ones first and maybe, come back and he's going to make me do a test or something. I don't know. I was like getting scared. I was like literally in anxiety that I wasn't going to be able to get the book that I wanted. So then finally I said, okay, I'll take these two small ones, but can I please have this one too? And finally he's like, okay, and I'll give you a magazine on top of it. He gave me a Back to Godhead magazine. So then I gave him a donation, and then I went home and I started reading. And I started with Perfection of Yoga because that was the first one that he kind of insisted I should read. But it was a little heavy going. It was like, it started off like something that I couldn't relate to directly. And then I opened up Bhagavad Gita and I read a little bit. And similarly, before I left his bookstall, I said to him, this knowledge here is a little new to me, so I'm sure I'm going to have some questions. Is there any place where you get together and discuss these things, that you come together and read the books and discuss? And he said, yeah, we have programs every Thursday night or something. And I said, well, can you tell me where they are? Can you give me the address. And it was almost like he was hesitating. He wasn't sure about me, whether I was like, going to be a safe person to invite to the Bhakti Picture programs or something. But in the end, I kind of twisted his arm and made him give me the address. And I even made him draw a map, because we didn't have Google Maps. So I made him like sketch out a map from the place that I lived. So I walked all the way there, got to the program, and it was the same person giving the class. That same person. I actually met him when I was in Mayapur last year. I didn't meet him, but I met somebody who knew him, and she immediately called him, video call on the phone, and she's like, "You need to talk to him." And he was and I couldn't believe it. Like after 30 years, I was like talking to this person who gave me my first books, and he was so happy. Now then he was a young man, now he's like old, and he's done so much service. He built a temple, and now he's kind of retired. Anyways, it was very sweet, very sweet moment. So I went to the program, and I was. Anyways, I can't tell all the details, otherwise I won't get to other things. But to make a long story short, there was a couple visiting there. The wife, there was a married couple. The wife was an American girl. She was about the same age I was at the time, and her husband was British, and they were living in London. So she just quickly latched onto me because she had been traveling for some time, and she was so happy to see an American girl her age, on the other side of the world. And so we were talking, and I went to a couple of meetings where she was before they left, and we got to be friends a little bit. And before I left, she said, "Oh, here, if you ever come to London, let me come look us up. I'll give you my address." So she wrote it with a pencil in my address book. And what she wrote was 10 Soho Street. So anyways, so then they left, and my time in Malaysia also finished. From there I went to Kathmandu, and I was in Nepal for about a month, and I was trekking in the Himalayas. And during that time it was just myself. I went down to one trekking company, and I got this Sherpa guide, and it was just the two of us, like walking through the mountains for weeks and staying in these simple mountain villages with people living super simple life, but very pure and very happy. And the experience of the people that lived there in the mountains, and the experience of the mountains themselves, was something that really moved me very deeply. And I'm convinced to this day that the Himalayas are alive. Like Prabhupada said that in some places in Prabhupada's books, he says the mountains can fly and they can walk, and they're living beings. So I'm sure that I met some living mountains there in my wandering in the Himalayas. And it's almost like, His Holiness Radhanath Swami had that experience of sitting in the Ganga on a stone, and the Ganges River spoke the Hare Krishna mantra to him. So I didn't have something so tangible as that, but I definitely feel like those mountains spoke to me, from within my heart. And they inspired me they helped me to understand all that I had been reading and all that I had heard from the devotees during this brief association I had in Malaysia. And it became very clear in my mind while I was walking, while I was trekking, that there's nothing worth doing except serving God. And it just became clearer and clearer to me every day. And by the time I got to the top of, not the top of, but I got to Everest Base Camp, which was really high, way above the snow line, and looking out over the world, it's like you're on top of the world, and looking out over the creation and seeing and really reflecting who am I in this world? I'm just an insignificant temporary being, an eternal being, but in a world where everything is temporary. My life is so insignificant. And so before I left on this trip, I had done an internship after I graduated from college. I went to Harvard University to do an internship, and during that time I had been offered, I'd been invited to come back to Harvard and do a PhD. So I was planning to do that. The head of the department called me to his office one day and said, "Oh, I'm really impressed by your work, and can you please come and study with us and be a part of our research lab?" So that was the plan. I was going to do that. But then I was thinking, as I was there in the mountains, I was thinking, well, I could become a famous scientist. I could, be a published author. I could even win a Nobel Prize. I could have, fame and fortune and friends and prestige and all that. But what's the point? I'm going to die, and it's all going to be lost. So I had this really overwhelming realization that everything material is just temporary, and nothing temporary is really ultimately valuable, and that I had to do something that had eternal benefit for myself and for others. And the only thing that I could think of that would be of eternal benefit was service to God. So that's how I came to that conclusion. So then when I came back down from the mountains, then I was supposed to go to Germany. I already had I had a round the world ticket. So round the world ticket was a really great thing because you never had to book a flight. You just go to the airport, tell them where you want to go, and they just put you on the flight and you go. So I had already been on many, many flights, 25 different flights already on that ticket, because you can stop as many times as you want. So I was just stopping everywhere, at every place, just getting out and exploring, and then going to the airport, going somewhere else. So it was great fun for me. And every single time I went to the airport, I never had to really wait. I would just go to the desk, tell them where I wanted to go, and they would put me on the next flight. It was always within a few hours, and go. So there's this time I got a flight from, I was going from Kathmandu to Frankfurt, Germany. But on the way, it was this airline that had to pass through Hong Kong. It was Cathay Pacific. So I was en route to Hong Kong, and there was this family on the plane, this young couple, and they were from Hong Kong. So we were talking on the plane, and they said, "Oh, have you ever been to Hong Kong?" And I said, "No." I said, "Well, why don't you check it out? Anyways, you're going there, and you can stay with us, and we'll show you around." And so I was like, "Sure." So from the airport, went to their place, and so I woke up the next morning early, and I was all excited to go explore. And I was walking through the streets of Hong Kong, and I had just been in the mountains, pristine nature, really just raw nature, with very little human impact. And then now I was in Hong Kong, which was just like a concrete jungle, just this modernized place with black asphalt roads, concrete sidewalks, buildings made out of steel and glass, and I was just like, where am I? What did I do? This is insane what people have done to the planet. Anyway, so I was walking along, and then to make matters worse, all these young men kept approaching me with documents. So the first man comes up to me, he's like, "Oh, hello, where are you from?" I said, "I'm from the USA, I'm just visiting." And he said, "Oh, can you help me?" I was like, "What kind of help do you need?" And he said, "I really need to get to America." And then he takes out the document. He's got these forms. He's got 2 passport photos. He said because Hong Kong then was under the British rule, and he was afraid that in 1995 it was going to become under control of the Chinese. So then it would become communist. And all these young men, they were trying to build their careers in business, and they were just basically going to lose everything when it became communist. So they were just desperate to get out quick before that happened. So anyways, this first man approached me, and I was just bewildered, still jet lagged, still culture shocked, and here's this guy, and I'm like, I don't know if I can help you. I have no money, I don't even have a fixed address in the USA. Anyways, I took his documents, and then I kept walking, and another man approached me, same thing, passport photos, everything. It happened 3 or 4 times, and finally I was just like, I gotta get out of here. This, the desperation was just, it was disturbing. So I just started walking really fast. And then finally I saw a market in the distance, a produce market. And then I thought, finally some color, nice bright fruits and vegetables. I was like, oof, something natural and organic, And so I started going towards that. I'll just look at the market. And so I'm walking through the market, and then I came to this meat stall, and they had it was just horrible. They had a Hong Kong meat stall. They had all these carcasses hanging up and stuff. And I was trying not to look at those, so I looked down, and then right in front of me there was this little table, and there was a dish, and the dish was full of blood, and in the middle of that little pool of blood, there was a brain. And I was just like, that's it. That's it. I am out of here. And I just made a beeline back to the apartment. And the couple, they were just waking up, getting ready for work. And I said, thank you so much for your kindness and your hospitality and your offer to stay in Hong Kong for some few days, but I really need to be getting on my way. Can you please take me to the airport? So they took me to the airport. And so I go to the desk and I'm like, I need a flight to Frankfurt. So she's like, tick, 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 looking up the flights. And then, no flight to Frankfurt today. I'm like, you mean on any airline? She's like, no airlines. I said, how about tomorrow? Tick, 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 tick. And then she's like, tick, 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 tick. And then she says, there's no flights to Frankfurt for the next 2 weeks. And I was like, what? Like, how is that even possible? Not even one seat? She's like, sorry. I said, okay, anywhere in Germany. So she's like looking at different cities in Germany. Sorry, there's nothing. And then I said, okay, anywhere in Europe. I can just get a train or something, Anywhere in Europe. So she's tick, 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 tick. She says, there's a flight to London tonight. And I said, okay, just book it for me. So she booked the flight for me. I waited around the airport. I got on the flight. I ended up in London. So then London was not part of my plans. Every other place that I was going, for the most part, I had like the major places, my major destinations, I had contacts already that I, arranged with people and stuff. But this was like not part of my plan. I just wasn't thinking I was going to London. But there I was in London. And I'm just standing there, took the train to the Victoria Station, which is like the central like interchange. So I'm standing there in Victoria Station thinking, what am I going to do in London? And then I remember that girl that I had met in Malaysia, that she said, if you ever come to London, look us up. So I opened my little address book, and there it was, 10 Soho Street. I was thinking that was their apartment, the address of their apartment. So I thought, okay, I'll just go there, I'll meet her, figure out where I'm going to go from here. But so I walked to 10 Soho Street, and then I look at it's a storefront kind of thing, and then I look at it and it says, Radha Krishna Temple. So it was the ISKCON London Temple. So then I walk in there, and then the receptionist is there, and I say, I'm looking for this girl that I met in Malaysia. Her name's Kalamati. She said she lives here. And she said, she works in Govinda's restaurant. She'll be coming in later in the afternoon. She said, you're welcome to wait around if you want. And I said, sure, I don't have anything else to do. So, and then just then they were going on Harinam, so they invited me to go on Harinam. I went on Harinam. I'd never been on Harinam before. And then after that, she said, now we have a lunch program. And I was like really happy with the word lunch, because I had been in Kathmandu. I had been hiking in the Himalayas for like weeks. And, we were staying at these little village, where we would eat was that along the way, they didn't have restaurants or anything like that. We would just go to somebody's house, some little thatched house of some villager, knock on the door, and then ask them if they could cook something for us, and we would give them a little donation afterwards. So we were just eating basically rice, and then the way they would make the dal was they had this green moong dal, and they'd take this much, palmful, put it in a gallon of water, and then pressure cook it until it was disintegrated, and add some salt. So so it was basically green water on white rice with salt. And that's all they could afford. That's all they had to offer. If you were lucky, if it was a really luxury place, then you might get little potato sabji or something, But that was rare. So that's what I was eating every day, and working intense workout, climbing mountains. So I was malnourished basically. So when she said lunchtime program, I was just yes. So I went up there, and she started serving the prasadam, and she gave me the rice and the vegetables, and I was just looking at it like somebody who hadn't seen food before. And then when she came with the dal, she gave me in a cup this dal, and it was thick, creamy, with vegetables in it, and you could see the spices, you could see the ghee, little bubbles floating on the top of it, And I drank that dal, and I just felt it going to every cell of my body, And then she said, and then she kept coming back. Anything else? And I was like, yeah, can I have more of that dal? So she kept bringing it, And I ended up drinking 9 cups. And then I think she had a sense from that there was something special about me, that I had potential as a devotee. So she said, well, I love your enthusiasm for prasadam. She said, you might be interested in, we have a senior monk who does a questions and answers session upstairs. And I said, sure, I always have questions. So I went up and I walked into the room. It was the little temple library where they held this session. And the monk was Keshava Bharati Maharaj. So he was the temple president at the time. And so I walked in, and as soon as I stepped through the door, he was like, oh, Hare Krishna, welcome, what's your name? And he just started asking me all about myself and what I was doing, what brought me there. And then he finally got to, so where are you going from here? And then I said, well, I've put a lot of thought into my life trajectory, and I've decided that the only thing worth doing is serving God. And then when I said that, he was like, wow, you've come to the right place. But then he was very open-minded. He said, so, but how are you planning to go about serving God? And I said, well, I've looked into different religions. I've traveled to different countries. I've discussed, different faiths with people who sincere practitioners of those faiths. And I've come to the conclusion that all religions are, at least the major religions, are bona fide paths to God. And maybe the methods, the rituals, the techniques are a little different, but ultimately they're all going to the same one supreme being. And he said, that's true. And I said, but so I could take any of them. I could just go any route to God. But I feel like because I was raised a Christian, then that's what's most familiar for me, and I guess it would be most comfortable for me, most sort of socially, natural for me to devote myself to Christianity. So he said, okay, that sounds like a good plan. And then he said, so I thought that I would become a Christian missionary, because I had this preaching spirit. So he said, I think I'll become a Christian missionary. He said, all right, as a Christian missionary, do you think you might ever go to India? And I said, yeah, it's a good possibility. And it was like one of the few countries that I didn't go to. And the only reason, I had a visa for India and everything, and I was planning to. But when I was in Nepal, I was meeting all these young Western tourists who were just coming from India. And they were like, don't go there alone, not like a young, white, Western woman. It's not safe. So I changed my plans. I didn't go. That was the one time in my, one of the few times in my life where I really played it safe, because they were like telling me horror stories. Anyways, so I said, yeah, India is a place where I've always wanted to go, always had an attraction for India. And he said, so when you go preaching Christianity in India, then don't you think it'll be helpful if you know a little bit more about their scriptures, their beliefs, and then you can relate to them better, and you can get them to connect with Christianity and accept, the teachings of Christ and all that? I said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That sounds reasonable. He said, okay, then I have a proposal for you. He said, see here in the because we were in the library. He said, we have all these books. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, so many books here. Why don't you stay with us for 2 weeks and just study the books? Just read our books. You can pull out all the points. You think about how they connect to Christianity, how you can relate with people, from their scriptures, from your scriptures, draw the connections and the parallels. And he said, I'm here. My office is just down the way. You can knock on my door. If you have any questions, you can just ask me. And when your 2 weeks is up, then you just go back to the U.S. You can go to Bible college and continue on your career as a Christian missionary. So I said, sounds good. And the girl who served me the dal, she was there. He said, so this is Anne-Marie, and we have a women's ashram here. We have a dormitory space where you can stay. She'll show you there. She'll set you up with a place to live. And so I moved in on the day. First day that I ever went to a Hare Krishna temple. I just moved in. And I wasn't following anything, It wasn't chanting. I didn't even know about the 4 regular principles. But from that day on, I just started following them automatically by the association of devotees, and the lack of an opportunity to break them. And going to the monastery. So they woke me up the next morning for not for Mangal Arti, that was the second day. The first day they woke me up at 6:30 for Darshan Arti. And the way she woke me up was she kind of like shook my shoulder a little bit very gently. And then I opened my eyes and she said, "Open up your mouth, I have something special for you." So I opened up my mouth and she dropped a rasagula in my mouth. I was still like in my bed, on the top bunk, and I still remember to this day the feeling of that thing and like all the juice, and it was like squeaky and everything. I was just like, what on earth is this? I mean, it's delicious, but I never ate anything like this before. Anyways, so I started reading the books and going to the morning program, hearing classes, talking to devotees, and I did take Keshava Bharati Maharaj up on his offer to knock on his door and ask him a lot of questions, like at least 2 or 3 times a day. I was in there, we were discussing things, and he was very accommodating, just always very saintly, very fatherly, very affectionate in that way. And they gave me the service. I was cleaning the temple room floor. That was a nice service. And cleaning the stairs, all the stairs up and down, so that was a good exercise. But I was in a room with 3 other girls. We had 2 bunk beds in one room, and that was and the other 3 girls were all going out on book distribution. So I was the only one back at the temple. They would all, after breakfast, they would all pack up their trolleys and full of books and head out. And then they would come back around 6 p.m. and they would come to the room and they were like full of energy. They were like glowing and telling stories about, the people that they met and the things that they said and the funny things that happened and all that. And by like day 3 or day 4, I was just like, I want to go out with them. Because also I had just been traveling all over the world. I was always out and about. So for me to stay in the temple, like even for 2 or 3 days, was like, I gotta like get out, and do something. So they were going out and they were coming back so ecstatic. I was like, I really want to go out with them. So I went to Keshava Bharati Maharaj and said, I really want to go out and do what they're doing. He said, okay, go talk to the Sankirtan leader. So I talked to the Sankirtan leader. He said, you're too new. You got to stay a little bit longer. I was like, oh, shoot. So then I kept cleaning and praying and talking to everybody and saying how much I wanted to go out. And then finally they let me go out. So I came to the temple on a Saturday, and the next Saturday they let me go out. And I went out, and I was so fired up. I was like, I'm going to tell people all about God, all about Krishna. And I was just walking up to people and say, hey, do you want to know who God is? And these British people, it was in England, so British people are very reserved, and very just like, with like all their barriers, and like they don't talk about things, that are too personal and stuff like that. And they were just looking at me like, no. Do you want to know who God is? No. Anyways, that was like, I was thinking that the only reason, when you first come to Krishna consciousness, you feel like the only reason that other people are not devotees is because they just don't know about it yet. And if I just tell them, they're all going to join, Because that's how it was with me. That's literally how it was with me. Like, as soon as I heard about Krishna and Krishna consciousness, I was just like, sign me up. So I was literally surprised that people were like, I can't believe they're not interested in knowing about God, like knowing more about it, like his name, his form, his qualities, his pastime. Like, what's wrong with you people? This is the most important thing. Anyways, that was a rude awakening. So, but eventually I actually got pretty good at books, and then I was allowed to do it as my full-time service. So that became my full-time service for the next 5 years at least. So 3 years I was in the London temple in the Brahmacharini ashram. And that's also why I'm so much faith in like the ashram experience. And I'm very supportive of the Krishna house model. Because if it wasn't for the ashram, I probably wouldn't be here today. It was only because they were able to say, come and stay with us. And because if I had not like stayed there, I would have walked out the door and gotten myself a room in a youth hostel or something and met other travelers and gone out seeing the sights of London, and I probably wouldn't have gone back to the temple at all. I would have just gotten involved with other things. But the fact that they just like saw me, they saw the little spark there of devotion and sincerity to know God, And they're like, come and stay with us. We'll take care of you. You don't have to worry about anything. And yeah, so it was the association that really helped me. Yeah.
At the end of those 2 weeks, what happened?
Oh, yeah, I didn't even notice when the 2 weeks ended. Like literally, I forgot about the whole proposal and the deal. And I was just, chanting 16 rounds and everything, going out in full-time Sankirtana every day and Mangalarti. I was like in the temple from 4:30 to 8:30 in the morning, chanting, dancing wildly in kirtan. At that time, the London temple was so amazing because it was packed with local devotees. And it was all like British devotees. I was the only one there that wasn't like of British origin. So and it was just full. The men's ashram was full, the ladies' ashram was full. We had like grihastas that were coming in every day for Mangalarti and just doing full service. So it was really this mood of like total enthusiastic dedication, full-time service that we were all doing. So there was like a high level of energy. Everyone was just serving Krishna 24/7 in so many different services and supporting each other, and kirtans were really amazing. Prasadam was amazing. Everything was cooked in ghee. It was like tons of prasadam. So yeah, it was really just impossible to leave. I couldn't have left even if I had thought about leaving. But then something happened.